It's 1 o'clock, so I'm going to call this meeting to order, or could bring it back to order. And let me first of all say we are scattered across the regional district and acknowledge that collectively we are on the unceded territory of all of the First Nations within our regional district boundaries. And the second thing I have to do is read the rules for virtual meetings, which I am now going to do, and it's a long one. This meeting of the board is being held virtually with all meeting participants attending via electronic communications in order to adhere to the provincial health officer's orders respecting physical distancing requirements as a measure to prevent the transmission of COVID-19. A, directors will be involved in and participate in the meeting. B, for the closed portion of the meeting, we have done that, so I'm not going to repeat that. Directors are to identify themselves when advising the chair that they wish to be placed on the speakers list, and this will be done by raising their hands on camera. The chair will record the order in which the hands are raised and will allow the directors to speak in the order in which they are recorded. If directors are unable to raise their hands due to technical limitations with their device, they will verbally advise the chair of their intention to speak. D, directors will mute their device unless they wish to speak. The chair may also choose to mute the microphones, and the directors may unmute the microphones on their own accord when required. E, with respect to a vote, directors are only required to state a nay vote. That is, directors are not required to voice a yay vote. F, directors attending the meeting are required to verbally advise the chair of when they leave the meeting and return to the meeting, so that this can be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. For clarity, if a director does not verbally advise the chair but is observed to be absent from their video feed, and their video feed remains turned on, and it is unclear to staff whether they are present in the meeting, the director will be marked absent from the meeting until such time as staff observes the director to reappear in the video feed. Directors will text message the Chief Administrative Officer if they have a technical difficulty with their computer or telephone. That is, they need to be reconnected to the meeting. If directors are unable to text the CAO, the director will email the chair. H, if a technical difficulty occurs and it becomes apparent that a director has become disconnected from the meeting will be recessed until the connection status of the director has been determined, at which time the meeting will be reconvened with or without the director present, provided the meeting's quorum is maintained. I, directors who declare a conflict of interest in respect of an agenda item will be directed to the virtual waiting room while the board considers the agenda item. Once the board completes its consideration of such agenda item, the director will be readmitted to the virtual meeting room. J, directors who are present within the virtual waiting room are asked to stay at their computer or otherwise remain present and connected to their computer if possible for the entire duration of their time in the waiting room, so as not to miss their readmittance into the virtual meeting room. And if possible, any chat functionality of the application will be disabled, and if it is not possible to be disabled, directors will not use this chat functionality during the meeting. That's great, thank you very much. So that brings us now to item 3. 3.1, request for decision and approval of virtual board meetings board policy. I'm sorry, was there a question?
I just wonder if we could have the number we should text to reviewed here for Kristen's number or Graham's.
Sure. If we have a problem, Kristen, can you just say your text number out loud? Or shall I say it? I can probably find it.
Yep, I can say it. It's 604 902 5151.
Okay, thanks, Director Birch-Jones. That's important.
And sorry, Tony, can I just say that if we, the what you just read out, there's a motion to approve that, but we might want to make the changes because we're not using the virtual hands, I think. We're just using real hands.
Yes, yes.
So
I changed that when I said it was.
Okay. So just a note in that resolution that just as revised. I'll just add that wording, we'll read that in.
So you're talking about 3.1, decision to approve virtual board meetings board policy.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking for a motion that the Squamish Lillooet Regional District Board approve board policy number 19-2020, virtual board meetings policy as amended. Yeah,
Perfect.
thank you. Moved by Director Richmond, second by Director Ford. Any questions or discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Now at 1:10, which is in 4 minutes, we have delegation. So can we rise and report from our closed meeting?
Yep.
What do we need there, Kristen? We've got
Those were the AAC appointments.
yeah. So moved by Director Ford, seconded by Director Richmond. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by Director Ford, seconded by Director Demare. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We could probably just squeeze in the consent agenda as well. Is there anything to be removed from the consent agenda? If not, I'd like a motion to approve it. Moved by Director Richmond, seconded by Director Birch-Jones. Any questions or comment?
I have a comment. Just in the minutes of the AAC Area B, it says that the staff follows a practice of not attaching additions or reports that are related to that meeting. So minutes without attachments is how the minutes come towards the board. Is that right?
So do you want to pull that from the consent then and talk about that, Vivian? Now, is that a change you're looking for?
Well, we asked for that report that was presented to us at the meeting that you attended to be attached to the minutes. So I expected to see it in front of the board here, but then it was, I mentioned that it's not the practice of the SLRD staff to attach the reports to the minutes that go before the board. So I'm just clarifying. I think we're either looking at the minutes in their entirety or not. That would be my comment.
Do you actually want to pull that then and talk about it outside of the consent agenda and then make a resolution?
Sure.
Because if we, it sounds to me as though you're asking for a change.
Well, it's just a surprising way to do business. This whole thing with the minutes from committees going back and forth to the board and how it happens, the AAC in Area B has had some problems with the way that is conducted. And so I'm clarifying.
So are you looking at 6.1.1?
6.1.2.
Or 6.1.2? So you'd like to pull that from the consent agenda?
And I have a comment on 6.2.1 as well.
Okay, then you'd need to pull that as well then.
Yes, please.
Okay, so 6.1.2 and 6.2.1 were removed from the consent agenda. Kristen, can you slot them in later on for me, please?
Yes.
So I'd like a motion then to approve the consent agenda with those two amendments. Okay, moved by Director Demare, seconded by Director Ford. Any further discussion or comment? Okay, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. That has brought us to 110. So if I can now direct you to 9.8, which is request for decision, Squamish Valley Agricultural Plan, final endorsement. Graham, do we have some people ready to join us?
Yes, we do. So we have Alex, Kim, Sarah McJanet, and Crystal Tenbrink.
Great. Could you please set that up for us now then, please?
I am admitting.
There's Alex.
Chair,
There's Kim.
is Director Race joining us for this?
Director Race was here. Where's he gone?
He's popped in and out a few times. I think he's having technical challenges with his microphone.
Okay. So he's working on it right now. Well, we
Yeah,
have,
he's back in the waiting room, so I'm just admitting him now.
okay. Director Race, are you with us?
I'm not sure. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, you are. I can hear you. Can't see you.
I can't see you either at the moment.
No, well, that's probably mutually beneficial. So having said that,
Get all dressed up for this meeting.
okay. Alex, are you going to take the lead with this? Take off your, there you go. Okay, over to you then.
Thanks, Chair Rainbow. So good afternoon, board. On the line with us today, we have Sarah McJanet, who's a senior planner at the District of Squamish. And then I believe Crystal, hi Sarah, that Crystal Tenbrink from the Squamish Food Policy Council was also going to, there you go, perfect, is joining us as well. So our purpose today is to present the final Squamish Valley Agricultural Plan, along with the implementation terms of reference that we've put together that outlines leadership roles, scope, and annual resourcing to support plan implementation. And I will also mention that we presented, or Sarah presented this yesterday to District of Squamish Council, so both the final plan and the implementation terms of reference, and those were both given endorsement at that meeting. So I'll just put it to the board. I do have the same 10 to 15-minute presentation that was given to the District of Squamish yesterday. So we can either do that, or kind of mindful of time in the agenda, I can just go through the really salient points. So the things that have changed in the plan since it was last reviewed by the board in January, and then talk a little bit about the implementation terms of reference piece.
What was my thing? Alex, why don't you give us what the district received yesterday?
Okay, perfect. So that is in the package that you all received. There was Appendix C, which is the slides for the presentation, if you want to just follow along that way, or I don't know if we can pull it up, if there's a way to do that. Graham, is there a way to pull up the slides, or should I just go through it?
Probably better to just go through it right now.
Okay, no problem.
Be unduly delayed.
Okay, so you can just follow along in the package if you like. So I'm just moving on to slide 2. So I just want to start by acknowledging again our funders and the project team members that were involved throughout the development of the agricultural plan. So in 2018, the District of Squamish and the SLRD both committed $15,000 to the project and received matching funding of an additional $30,000. And that's from the governments of Canada and British Columbia through the Investment Agriculture Foundation of BC. And then Upland Agricultural Consulting and the Whistler Center for Sustainability were hired to lead the plan development and the engagement process. So the Squamish Valley Agricultural Plan has initiated joint agriculture planning between the SLRD, District of Squamish, in close collaboration with Squamish Food Policy Council, as well as the BC Ministry of Agriculture. And we had a really great project steering committee as well. So on to slide 3. So we had 14 members of our steering committee representing a really broad sector. So community members, agricultural producers, and people involved in the food system. And they were really instrumental throughout the development of the plan, providing expertise and support to the process. So I'm just going to touch on briefly, we went through in January the kind of rigorous engagement activities that have been conducted over the last 18 months in detail. I just want to mention that following review by District of Squamish Council and the SLRD board at the end of January, we did take the plan back to the public one final time. So we had a public open house on February 20th. And that saw approximately 40 community members coming out, as well as members of council and the SLRD board. So in terms of, this is slide 5, in terms of the final deliverables, we have made some refinements to the plan, the draft plan, since it was last reviewed by the board and council in January. We've also put together an informational brochure. So that's a 2-pager, just quick at a glance, key highlights of the plan. And then we've put together this joint implementation agreement, which I'll talk a little bit further about. So I'm just going to go through quickly what has changed since you last saw the plan in response to what we heard from the board, what we heard from council, and what we heard from the public at that open house. So we've added detailed maps to the plan itself, as well as to the background report. We've expanded considerations for reducing wildlife conflict for urban and rural food growing activities. Added additional detail about opportunities for future collaboration with the Squamish Nation. Updated the reference to the District of Squamish Climate Action Plan. And continued considerations for agriculture and climate change planning. We've also increased the emphasis on regenerative agricultural practices. So that includes agroforestry and farming practices as a method for mitigating climate change impacts. And then finally, we've added process and performance indicators to the monitoring and evaluation strategy so we can track progress on implementation of those regenerative agricultural practices. So all of the final documents are going to be hosted on the SLRD website, and that will include the implementation agreement once it is signed and finalized. So on to slide 6. So in summary, the agriculture plan provides a framework to support the local agriculture and food system sector. It identifies opportunities and actions to strengthen agriculture, both within the District of Squamish and within SLRD Electoral Area D. And a core plan objective is to protect and increase the productivity of foodlands within the ALR, foodlands and the ALR within the plan area. Okay, so I'm going to talk onto slide 7, just really briefly. I'll just go through this kind of at a high level, but we did want to mention the relationship between the Squamish Valley Agricultural Plan and food security, which is obviously a key issue at this current point in time. So food security is defined as when all people at all times have access to sufficient, safe, nutritious, affordable food to maintain a healthy and active life. And that's from the World Health Organization. So embedded in the vision for the agriculture plan is language that speaks to that. It says, nutritious food is plentiful and appreciated as part of a resilient food system that reinforces human, ecological, and economic health. So tackling food security is distinct in many ways from the overall scope of the agricultural plan. Food security looks at addressing kind of the root causes of food insecurity, whereas the focus of the agriculture plan is on strengthening agriculture. But while those are two distinct things, many of the recommended actions contained within the plan do in fact support food security of the region as a whole. So just a couple of examples of those are improving local processing opportunities to increase the type and amounts of foods available locally, realizing a year-round farmers market to ensure that residents have the ability to access local foods all year round, and building connections between schools and community gardens to increase opportunities for children to have access to fresh and healthy foods. And I also wanted to mention that the Squamish Food Policy Council, who will be taking the lead on implementation for many of the action items for the agricultural plan, are also heavily involved in supporting food security locally and regionally. So on slide 9, getting back to the plan endorsement, the plan sets a vision for agriculture. And from this, there are 6 themed goals and objectives and 38 prioritized recommended actions that fall out of that. So of the 38 recommended actions, there are 18 that are proposed to be led by the District of Squamish, 13 that will be led by the SLRD, and 23 that will be led by Squamish Food Policy Council. Okay, so on to slide 11. So just a couple of examples of local government-led actions. I want to highlight the fact that in many cases, the identified actions that are going to be taken on by local government are already connected to ongoing departmental work. So Goal 5 and Action 5.4b are great examples of that. So Goal 5 is aligning policies and regulations for agriculture and food. And the associated action item is updating OCP and zoning bylaws to better align with the Agricultural Land Commission Act and regulations. So that's work that we have already initiated and will be continuing to work on. Okay, so on to 12. In terms of the implementation agreement, so this is a non-binding agreement. It's going to be signed by the District of Squamish, the SLRD, and the Squamish Food Policy Council. And essentially what it does is it outlines clearly the roles, resources, and reporting for ongoing agricultural plan initiatives, and it will guide the collective activities as we work toward the vision, goals, objectives, and actions identified in the plan. And you can see the draft of that in Appendix B, so that's included in your package as well. And I just wanted to mention at this point that I want to mention the funding that's already been committed for initial implementation in 2020. So there's $2,500 from the District of Squamish. That was matched by $2,500 from SLRD Area D Select Funds. And then $20,000 coming from the Southern PILT Funds, which is a combination of SLRD and District of Squamish funding. So I'll just quickly go through the four staff recommendations that are before you today. So the first one is that the Squamish Lillooet Regional District endorse the final plan and the associated implementation agreement dated April of 2020. That the chair and/or interim chief administrative officer be authorized to sign the implementation agreement. That as the SLRD and District of Squamish have provided final endorsement to the plan and the implementation agreement, the previously committed $20,000 from the Southern PILT Funds be released to Squamish Food Policy Council to support initial implementation. And finally, that staff develop a budget proposal for the SLRD's 2021 budget for ongoing and high priority action implementation. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Does anybody have any questions? I have a comment which I'll make now that I think that we as a group have to pay attention to and think about. The irony of this awful fire that just occurred in the Squamish Valley was that the cause was a farmer clearing some land so that he could increase his farming capability. And if you look through, it's a topic of discussion in the valley right now. I was up there yesterday and spoke with a number of people. And if you look around, there's a lot of ALL land up there that is treed. Mm-hmm. And so to increase, to put more of it into agriculture, those trees will have to be taken down and cleared. And I think we need to I'm not quite sure what we need to do, but we can't leave it to individuals to do it by themselves without risking the same kind of event that we had last weekend. So I think we have to take some initiative there to engage some professionals to give us some guidance, to all of the farmers in the valley as to how to go about that safely. So I just mentioned that now, and that's something that I think will be brought to the committee, or it'll certainly come to the board and I think to the district at some point. Okay, so we have where's my Kristen, can I move all those that's at the same time? I forgot to ask you that.
Yes, you can.
So we've got that the SLRD endorse the final plan, that the chair and/or interim CAO be authorized to sign, that the money be released and that the ongoing budget proposal for the SLRD be implemented for 2021. So can I have somebody move all that?
I'll move it.
Second.
I moved Director Birch-Jones and seconded by Director Elliott. Any further discussion, Director Elliott?
Thank you. When this was presented in the district yesterday, I held my comments because I said I would get a chance to do it today. So I just want to thank everyone for their work on this. I think this plan, an action plan, was the missing link for really addressing local food productivity in the corridor. And so I'm glad that we've finally done this work between the district and Area D. If nothing else, I think this pandemic has shown us just how fragile our systems can be when we rely on international and cross-border procurement. And even now we know that producing more food locally will help support our residents as we recover from this pandemic. So I'm really pleased to see this moving forward. Thank you everyone for your work on this.
Thank you, Director Elliott. Okay, I'll call the question on this. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. I would like to just add my thanks to the people that have brought us to where we are right now. I remember when Mayor Heinzman first approached me as the Area D Director and asked if I was interested in putting some money into an initial study that would work towards this. I remember being quite excited about that, and I've really enjoyed meeting the different people along the way that like Crystal and Sarah, and I'm just delighted that we're where we are at the moment, and I look forward to seeing this thing implemented and seeing us really work to improve food security in this area, which is something that's very close to my heart. So thank you, everybody. I didn't mention Kim and Alex. I should have mentioned. I just take you for granted because you're SLRD staff, you see. No, I don't. I thank you as well. Okay. Then we'll say goodbye to you, I guess. Unless, Sarah, did you want to add anything or?
Just big thanks to everyone. It's been a fantastic project, and we really look forward to continuing to work together on all of the action implementation. There's a lot of work ahead, and we have a great foundation to start this work.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Anyone else? Kim? No? Okay. In that case, I'll thank you all very much for coming, and hi, Crystal, or goodbye, Crystal. We'll talk to you later. Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Graham, work your magic and get us back to where we need to be. So which is
8.1.
Yeah, I'm just electoral area B, agricultural terms of reference and bylaw amendment. Where's Director Birch-Jones gone? People keep moving around on my screen. Why do you keep moving around? There she is. Director Birch-Jones, do you have any comment, or would you like to move this as is? Or
I would like to move it as is. Thank you.
Kim, do you have any comments on that? I should have asked you first. No. Okay, can I have that seconded then by Director DeMeyer? Does anybody have any questions for Kim or any comments on this? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Request for decision, Whistler Sports Legacies Society, zoning amendment application, Whistler Olympic Park seasonal campground use, first reading. Kim, would you like to say something to us about that?
Yeah, sure. So this application was presented to the board previously for permission to proceed. And essentially, the Whistler Olympic Park is looking to add 26 tent sites and 20 recreational vehicle sites in close proximity to their existing day lodge. Basically, it would be the RVs are proposed to be in a parking lot near the day lodge. The tent sites are basically in the flats in front of the ski jump area. And so basically, this would allow for some overnight camping during the spring and summer. Don't have a whole lot more to say than that. It's a fairly simple application. There would be use of existing facilities at the day lodge. There's already sewer system and water up there that they would tap into for this.
Okay, thank you, Kim. Anybody have any questions? If not, I'll move this myself. I move that the two that's, that bylaw 1673/2020 area D zoning bylaw amendment be introduced and given first reading, and that 1673/2020 to the appropriate First Nations, Resort Municipality of Whistler, District of Squamish, and provincial agencies, including the Ministries of Transportation and Infrastructure, Forest Lands, Natural Resources, and Environment for comment. So could I have someone second that? Seconded by Director Ford. Any further comment or question? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Kim, Pinecrest Estates. Pinecrest Estates. Do you want to say anything about that?
Sure. So the land use at Pinecrest is governed by a land use contract currently. And so there is underlying zoning that was created. And a couple of years ago, we did a zoning amendment to discharge the land use contract from a number of lots. Since that time, we've had a few residents of Pinecrest ask us to also be discharged from the land use contract. And so we sent out another call to people asking if they would like to be discharged from the contract. And we received a number of consent forms from people. We actually received an additional consent form on the weekend from a resident, or actually a property owner, who is actually living in Texas. So I think it took a while for their form to get back to us. It's their lot 36 in there. So we were hoping to actually walk that addition onto the bylaw. Yeah, so we're suggesting that the public hearing be waived and that we do the notice of public hearing waiver as per the Local Government Act.
Yeah, I'll make two comments. Number one, that those land use contracts have to expire by, what is it, 2024?
I think, yeah, 2023, I can't recall.
So it is inevitable eventually.
Yes.
I don't have any problem with adding that extra person that got to us late. And my comment about the public hearing is there is no need to do it. Everybody knows what is happening, what has happened to this point, and they know where it's headed. So it'd be a waste of time doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So can I have somebody make a motion on this item? Moved by Director Richmond, seconded by, Director Mack. And I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Kim. Where do we need to go now? 8.4, quorum at regular meetings during declared pandemics or epidemics, SLD procedure bylaw, amendment bylaw. So procedure bylaw 1499/2016 and the amendment bylaw 1671/2020. So Kristen, do you want to make any comment on that?
No, we just we had this all ready to go because we weren't sure if the province was going to be bringing in those changes. And then the province did, but we thought we would still bring it because it was ready to go and that it would cover a bit of a wider situation. Like the province didn't act until a certain point in the declared pandemic. So this, if it was in, it would allow us to act a little bit earlier. And the other piece is the province has only suspended those requirements for the open meetings until a certain date or until the declaration of public emergency is over. I'm not sure which one. So there could be a period of time afterwards where we would have to go back to our old system. So this would just allow us to carry on a little longer if that was the case.
If we need to. So it's just a little insurance that we'd have tucked away that we may never use, but it's there if we need it. Okay. Any questions? Comments?
So we'll just move the first that and then the second that as a separate motion, please.
Okay. So can I have somebody move the first of that? Moved by Director Ford, second Director DeMere. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. I have the motion for the second that. Moved by Director Elliott, seconded by Director Crompton. Well, that'll wake you up. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Good, thank you. 8.5, request for decision, omnibus board policy and omnibus bylaw for response to COVID-19 pandemic. So we have three that's there. Response that our response to COVID-19 pandemic omnibus policy be approved. Responses to pandemic omnibus bylaw be introduced and read a first, second, and third time, and that response to pandemic omnibus bylaw number 1674/2020 be adopted. We can do those together, can't we, Krista?
We can do the first two together and then.
Oh, right. Yeah, thank you. Director Elliott.
I just had a question about why the trail inspections can't be done.
At this point, I believe they can be. This is just to provide that ability in case we get to a situation where they can't be. But that is one that currently is expecting to continue under the current circumstances. It would continue.
I think I understand the maintenance part because it might be more than two people, but I didn't understand sending someone out to inspect a trail. Because don't we have liability if we're not aware of the state of our trails?
Yes, and this would give us some protection from that if we had a bylaw that enabled us to change the inspection schedule based on arising from the pandemic. So whether that would be like staff like if there was staff illness and we didn't have anyone to do it, if for some reason we weren't able to get out. And that's one that could be removed if, I guess we're just trying to get as much flexibility in those, in scheduled activities with, we just want some flexibility in case things change such that we can't send people out.
What do you think, Director Elliott?
Yeah, I was just trying to balance like the inspection part. So if we need to close a trail because something's happened, a tree has fallen across it or it's gotten washed out, and our liability of not knowing that versus being able to waive the maintenance because we can't put crews together, that seems different to me. But the inspection piece seems important, and that you can put a person in a vehicle to do that. And it doesn't necessarily need to be the same person each time. So that was the one that made me a little bit nervous.
So
But as long, if there's discretion, and I guess my question was about, if we don't inspect them, does really just passing this omnibus bylaw protect us from the liability of someone getting hurt?
It does. And that's one of the intentions of it, is to provide that protection.
Okay.
Okay. So can I have a motion to approve the first, or to move the first two that's? Moved by no one. Director Ford, seconded by Director DeMare. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Now I need a motion for the third that, which is the adoption. Moved by Director Ford, seconded by Director Richmond. For the question, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Staff reports and other business. Number 9, 9.1. CAO verbal update. Excuse me, just a minute, Kristen. Director DeMere? Unmute you. Yeah, there you go.
I'm just wondering, just go back to the trails. If they're not going to get inspected, could there be a use at your own risk signs up on the trails? Or some notification that they're not going to be inspected?
If we go offside of our inspections, there is a notice requirement that was in the bylaw, that we would have to, that we put that on our website in some form, and that will develop that. If it's a policy, and I'm not sorry, the trail maintenance, I believe, is a policy. I mean, I don't know if we would be able to put signs up as soon as that happens, Director DeMere, for the reasons being, if we're not able to inspect, then I'm not sure we would be able to put together the resources to get a sign up there.
Okay. Okay, Director DeMere?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. In that case, I'll turn it over to you then, Kristen, if you would like to do your update.
Yeah, thank you. So the first was the Northern Tour, which was scheduled in May, and that is still on the books. So I wanted your feedback on that.
Let's do that first. Comments, anyone? Director Elliott.
I'm not sure. If we go ahead, I think it means that we're all in our own separate vehicles and we're having quite a large impact, because the physical distancing piece isn't going to go away anytime soon. So I think that it should be deferred until we can actually reap the benefits of why we do these tours, which is to meet people, to be with people, to build relationships throughout the regional district. And this makes that very hard. So I'm sad to say defer, but it's a bit complicated right now.
Totally agree. Vivian here.
Go ahead, Director Birch-Jones.
Oh, just that I'm in complete agreement with that. And I'd prefer the word defer to canceled, maybe in the autumn, if things are in good order, to plan that then. I don't think we can plan anything more definitively than that at this time, but definitely cancel the northern tour for next month.
Thank you. I asked Kristen to include this because I didn't want to just say it is deferred. I wanted to get some sense of how you were feeling about it. So I guess, would you make a motion that we defer it until COVID allows us to proceed, something along those lines?
Certainly. Motion to defer the northern tour for public health restrictions around COVID-19 scheduled for May 2020 until such time as we can plan it.
Okay, thank you. Seconded by Director Crompton. Well, let me choose another northern person. Seconded by Director Demir. Okay.
Thank you.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Good. Okay, Kristen, carry on. Kristen, hello. Oh, we lost her? Graham, have I lost Kristen?
Yes, you have. She looks like there's a bit of a technical glitch, and she actually just left the meeting room.
Okay. Well, let's continue, and I'll come back to Kristen when she rejoins us. Oh, I see. No, just a minute. I see Sarah's here. So we have an EOC update. So Sarah, why don't you go ahead with that? Have to unmute. Yeah, there you go.
Sure. Good afternoon, board. Brave New World. In terms of the EOC, we're certainly still busy with one thing and another. In terms of COVID-19 response, we are looking at some longer term considerations now, including the potential for experiencing a second wave in our communities in the fall, which would also coincide with some of our highest risk flood timing in the fall, particularly for the Pemberton Valley area, but the Squamish Valley area as well. So we're starting to look at considerations for that and what that looks like. Also, just at a very high level, looking at recovery and considerations for recovery in terms of community from COVID-19 and its various other consequences. And also, and I think we're going to speak to this a little later in another report, some of the longer term organizational considerations as well for COVID. Those are the main points for that one. In terms of the McGee Road fire, I can share that we are planning at the recommendation of the BC Wildfire Service to lift the balance of the evacuation alert. So that is some good news for that fire, that the residents will come off evacuation alert, and we will post that later this afternoon to make that official. But the progress on the fire has been really aided in these last days by the cool change in the weather and the precipitation that we're seeing in Squamish at the moment. They're still scanning hotspots and actioning them, particularly on the steep slope area above Rusted Road, north and south. So they're paying particular attention to that one. But for the community overall, good news that BC Wildfire feels confident to rescind the evacuation alert as well for the remainder of the area. The third thing that we are now starting to keep a very close eye on is the flood situation developing north of the SLRD in the TNRD. And I'm in close communication with my equivalent in the TNRD. Their EOC is open. They're supporting Cache Creek, which is already seeing flooding. And I've also spoken to my equivalent in Lillooet just to talk about our experience with the District of Squamish and Squamish Nation in terms of evacuating large numbers of people, receiving large numbers of evacuees in the time of COVID. And what that looks like. And yeah, so that's it in terms of flood within the EOC. We're looking at that advanced planning piece, and if we do start seeing effects within the SLRD, that we've done as much advanced planning as possible. that's it, I think.
Thank you, Sarah. Has anybody got any questions for Sarah? I have a comment. No, I just like to say, while the board can hear it, that COVID was giving you enough work and more. And when that fire came along, it just doubled your workload, at least. And I just thank you so much for the way you coped with it, the way you dealt with the community. I've heard nothing but good things from the people up in the valley about how you took care of them. So thank you very much and congratulations on that work.
Thank you, Tony. And I'd like to take the opportunity while Mayor Elliott is here as well to say another enormous thank you to everyone at the District of Squamish. And they're just amazing to work with.
I'll second that. Great.
I'll pass that along, Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was really good. There was a terrific sort of team approach to it all, and it's very, very good. Now we still don't have Kristen, so let's move on to 9.2. We'll come back and pick up Kristen when she's available. So 9.2, request for decision, Seton Fire Services extension of the temporary service agreement. Sarah, would you want to comment on that for us?
Yes, I thought I'll just come back.
Perfect.
Right, so because we have COVID on the go, we're heading into peak fire risk in that community, which often sees fires that have it result in it being on evacuation alert or sometimes also under order. Very conscious of continuity of a first responder service in that community. Also, the society members have gone very much quiet, I think, since the pandemic, sort of reality took hold, shall we say. So I've had no further update or indication that they're moving towards operational readiness. And within that context, extending our existing temporary service agreement that we have with Shalath seems prudent to have fire suppression coverage, first responder presence, and just certainty through this period to the end of the year.
Thank you. Director Birch-Jones, do you have any comment on that? Mute.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sarah. And there was an error in an EAD meeting I allocated, which you would know, $50,000 towards some prescriptions in Area B in general. You with me? And that in the budget is filed under Seton Valley Fire, which is a mistake. And I brought that to the attention of the staff and they're going to fix it. But I thought I'd mention it because I know that the guys in the Seton Valley Volunteer Fire Service watch a lot of the SLRD bulletins and indeed minutes, and that could cause a little bit of confusion, just so you know, okay? And
thank you. Good to know in case that question comes at me. Just that is good to know. Thank you.
It might. And are we still providing, as per routine, the contribution to the Seton Valley Volunteer Fire Services? I'm fine with that. It's a small amount of money on an annual basis, but are we still doing that, or is that all shifted over to Shalath?
So Shalath, per their service agreement, are being compensated for providing that service. And the society is aware that they are stood down and they are not providing a service currently, so they are not eligible for that funding.
Okay.
And if that situation changes, then they will become eligible again because they are providing that service.
Thank you very much.
So can I have a motion that we will extend the temporary service agreement with the Shalath? Moved by.
I'd like to move that.
Director Birch-Jones, seconded by Director Ford. Any further comment or question? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. My only comment would be that I don't want this to come back as a temporary thing. I really think we should look at it as a permanent thing. I think that working with a First Nation like that is something, well, you know, when we talk about reconciliation, if you look at something like this, where we're making a contract with them to provide a service for us, I think that's reconciliation. That contributes anyway. So I would like to see us move towards that. And quite frankly, I can't see the volunteer group in Seaton ever meeting the kind of requirements that we need to be able to reinstate them. So I just think instead of going 6 months at a time, temporary, we need to get to a point where we say enough is enough. Now we want a permanent agreement, and within that permanent agreement can be an acceptance that anybody from off the reserve that wants to volunteer can.
And that direction, if I may, Chair, is our intention. I think the COVID-19 situation has affected our timelines once again, and we want to give the society members every opportunity to, basically every possible opportunity to be able to stand that fire service back up again.
Yeah, I understand that, and I appreciate that. I just wanted to say at a meeting that was the direction that I think we should be moving in, and it sounds like we are, so that's fine. Okay, thank you, Sarah. And I notice that Kristen has rejoined us. Now, Kristen, what we did was we had Sarah give us a, where's Kristen? Oh, she's moved over there. She's given her update. So you've got those two things that are outstanding. So over to you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. So did you pass the motion to defer the Northern Tour?
Yeah.
Okay. The other item was the IAP2 training that we're going to be having, I believe, in April and or June, sorry. And we're now looking into whether that can be provided in an online way, but that's still to be determined. So I just wanted to follow that up because we had sent out that doodle poll to get people signed up, and we were supposed to be having that in person during this period of time. And the last item is that we heard back with respect to the Cataline Creek grant application that made to the Disaster Mitigation Infrastructure Program, and it was not approved. And that was to help with the debris flow structure that's the community is looking to get in place there.
Director Richmond.
Sorry, Kristen, you got choppy a little bit on the IAP2 training. What did you say about it? Were we postponing?
So we were looking at, I'm just going to turn off my video to see if that helps. We had sent a doodle poll out to see when everyone was available for that. And I'm not sure if we ever got to a final date. But now with the situation we're in, we're looking into whether the provider can provide an online training opportunity. If that's even possible. If it is possible, I'll bring it back and see if that's the way we want to do it. But I just wanted to note that that was kind of left undone with the pandemic. Did you hear anything about Cataline Creek?
I heard Cataline Creek, yes, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? I'll have a motion to move receipt of for CAO report, moved by Director Richmond, seconded by Director Ford. Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. So we did 9.2. Information report, monthly development applications report. Any, Director Elliott?
I just wondered if there is a timeline for the Tiger Bay piece. I know it was a big application to review, but where staff might be at with that.
Yeah, so it's still in the review process. We're hoping to bring an update report to the board probably in June.
That's going to include the amendment to include the three-ring circus, is it? Enough. Okay.
I haven't heard about that yet.
Oh.
You must know something I don't know.
Oh, boy. Okay. Any other questions about that report? Could we move receipt, please? Oh, I just saw Oliver, moved by Director Elliott, seconded by Director Ford, who's fighting off a young man right now. And I call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. 9.4. Request for decision electoral area C. I'm going to leave Russell to tell me how to say that name. Development variance permit application number 152. Russ, do you have anything to say on that? Or Kim, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I'm here, Tony. If everything is okay with Kim on this, then I would move it moves forward.
Okay. So you can move those. Can we do those two that's? Yes, we can.
Can I just ask Kim for her comments?
It's just a basic 1.5 meter side parcel setback variance so that they can utilize an existing old foundation that they had previously utilized.
Gotcha.
So we don't see any issues with it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So Director Mack has moved the two that's in 9.4, seconded by Director Richmond. Any other, Richmond, sorry, Mike. Any other comments or questions? No, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Scott Ogilvie at Black Tusk, electoral area D. Another development variance permit application. Kim, do you see any issues with this one?
No.
Okay. I'll move this one because it's in area D. Seconded by Director Ford. Any comments? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. 9.6, Community Amenity Contributions Policy number 12-2018, that the SLRD board approves the amendments to the policy as presented. Any comments or questions on that? Could I have someone move that, please? Moved by Director Elliott, seconded by Director Crompton. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Request for decision temporary use permit number 50, West Callahan Base and Metal Dome Hut, Blackcomb Snowmobile Limited, Callahan Valley Area D. So this was a TUP which was put into place 3 years ago. They're looking for a 3-year, not amendment, renewal of that TUP. Kim, any questions on that before? Any comments on that?
No, they're not proposing to change anything. They just are looking for a 3-year renewal.
Okay, thank you. Director Elliott.
Can you remind me how many renewals they can achieve before they need to rezone?
They basically get their existing permit renewal, another permit and a renewal.
So,
okay.
Renewal.
This 3 years was the first permit. Is that right?
This is their second. Yeah.
So what happens at the end of this 3 years?
They have to apply for rezoning.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the extent of the renewals.
Yes.
Right. Thank you. Okay.
Can I just ask, what is the best way to start capturing things like GHG emissions when we issue TUPs? So if they needed if they had an opportunity for another renewal prior to rezoning, I'm just wondering what the mechanism is, Director Needham, when we want to start using climate as another tool for these kinds of backcountry operations.
I think when we bring them in for like rezoning, which they'll have to start working on in a couple of years' time, I think we can capture it at that point. Because this is a renewal, we really can't tweak the terms of the permit beyond what was originally agreed to. But it's definitely something we can deal with in the future.
So if we got a new backcountry TUP request, can we use something like GHG targets or emission reduction efforts as terms in TUPs?
Yeah, TUPs are pretty flexible tools, so we can require all sorts of conditions. So certainly that could be something that we could look at. Maybe looking at, you know, electric snowmobiles as opposed to gas powered, etc.
All right, thank you.
And Kim, I believe we're not obligated to renew this for 3 years, are we? We could.
There's no obligation, no.
So we could say no, or we could say 3 years, or we could say 1 or 2 years.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So I need a motion of some kind. Director Richmond. What are you moving? That
I'll move the renewal.
for the 3 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll second it.
That sounded like Director Mack. Okay, any further comment or discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. 9.8 we've done. Our SLRD audited financial statements, that the audited financial statements be approved as presented, and that the chair and treasurer be authorized to sign the audited financial statements. Any questions on that? Yeah, someone move that, please. Moved by Director DeMere, seconded by Director Richmond. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Information report, business continuity planning and organizational risk management in response to COVID-19 pandemic. Kristen, did you want to comment on that for us? Or should I just see if there's some questions? You're muted.
Sorry, Sarah's here too, as she was the author. So if you want an overview, we can provide you with an overview or just take questions.
I think we'd like an overview, please.
Okay, so this is an overview of the, sorry, I just got a little distracted there, of the COVID-19 organizational response to date.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so so per the report, we stood up our EOC on March 13th, and 2 to 3 days later, we'd managed to get nearly all staff into remote working arrangements. And the last public activity that happened in our office was the last board meeting to pass the financial plan. And the office has been shut until further notice since then. In terms of organizational continuity planning, a lot of resource and time from the management team and from the planning section chief and the EOC in particular has gone very much into every aspect of service continuity in this remote working environment, and also into keeping essential services such as transfer stations, wastewater treatment and drinking water systems all working. And there has been no reduction in service, and all, the SLOD continues to deliver all services, which is that I'm aware of as at this point today. which is, I think, a notable achievement by all staff. Just looking down here, as I mentioned in my EOC update, that sort of that initial phase of responding to the emergency with as much speed as possible, keeping our systems up and running, we are through that phase now, and we're looking at some of these longer term considerations. We're looking at the potential for longer term financial considerations, which I know have been discussed in various forums at various levels of government. And we are looking at what this thing looks like if we stay in this level of restrictions, what it will look like if there's a resurgence in the fall, and if we are partially back in the office and then we need to retreat. We're looking at all of those kinds of advanced planning considerations and how we can maintain what we have now, which is that all staff are engaged, all staff are delivering services as we were before. We have established a organizational continuity and risk management team, because a large part of organizational continuity in this context is managing risk. This pandemic has produced risks in every level of the organization, and so risk management is the process of identifying and mitigating those risks, and where they can't be mitigated, what we are doing about them, and to keep a clear and transparent record of that work. So in terms of the EOC currently, we have the EOC Risk Management Officer and the EOC Planning Chief still reporting into the EOC Director in terms of EOC operations. And then we also have those two project members reporting into what I'll refer to as SLRD Corporate, through Graham Hayward as project manager and up to Kristen Clark as interim CAO. And then in that corporate structure, the project team also includes our entire SLRD management team. So that is the structure that we're currently going with as we move some of those tasks out of that initial response phase and back into SLRD corporate. Happy to take any questions. I think those are the main points.
Okay, thank you. Questions? You were very thorough, Sarah. No questions.
It's a good job. I have one question. It's not really so much for Sarah, but I keep hearing that all the services are still being provided, but a building inspection that was requested in Area B, and we don't get very many of those, was refused due to the COVID-19 situation. So are building inspections still being provided or not in Area B?
Kristen, do you want to handle that or shall I?
Kim could probably answer that best.
Okay. Oh, I didn't see Kim there. Sorry. Kim, please address that.
Yeah, so we have a bit of a working policy right now for building inspections. So we are still doing building inspections. We are, at first we were not doing final inspections, which involve going inside of a structure, mostly because there are a lot of surfaces. We've now switched that so that we are going to do finals. However, we're working on a system whereby the owner has to be clear of the house. The contractor has to be, leave space for the building inspector. And we're going to have people sign a waiver saying that there are no personal effects or valuables in the house, just so that the building inspector isn't accused of anything untoward while they're in the house. So I'm not certain about the situation that happened in Area B. That I never heard about that, so I don't know what happened there. But generally, we do go up to Area B on Fridays.
Okay. Thanks, Kim. Vivian, you okay with that?
Yep, no, that was the one that I forwarded on to you, Tony, just as an information thing, just asking about whether or not we were going to be doing building inspections in Area B, but it sounds like from Kim that we are. So that's good.
Okay. Anything else, anybody?
Tony, could I ask a question of, I guess, Kim?
Go ahead.
Because I've had one of my constituents just concerned that they were told now that it's 14 weeks before building permits will be issued, approximately in that range. Are we not getting further out instead of narrowing this up? And if we don't have the capacity or the staff to do it, should we be looking at hiring somebody interim, like just to assist in this? Because that seems to be an awful lot of time.
Yeah, so I can't really get too much into some of our like specific hiring matters, but we do have somebody that, and we had prepared a contract for them. When COVID broke out, there were some issues. That person had some concerns, so we've delayed their start. We've also lost one of our part-time inspectors and plan checkers. They haven't returned for their contract this year. So we are a little bit short staffed. However, we are pulling one of our regular building inspectors back again for the summer. I think our challenge right now is probably more on the plan checking side. And yeah, so we're working as hard as we can, but we have had this extra layer of COVID related issues on top of things. So I can look into that for you and find out more about what the delay is. Normally we say 12 weeks. So I'm not sure why they've said 14, but I'm sure it's just to do with the backlog that we're dealing with right now.
Okay, well, maybe we can just, I'll chat with the chair offline and then to see if we need to ramp up and maybe hire somebody else temporarily to assist. And it sounded like you're already doing that, so.
Mm-hmm. It's just a little bit of a challenge right now with the COVID because with the training aspect, there are, of course, the 2-meter distance issues. So it becomes a little bit challenging to bring in new staff at this particular time.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Director Mack. Anybody else? Okay, so what have I got there? I need a motion to receive that, 9.10, to receive our organizational risk management process thing. So, moved by Director Birch-Jones, seconded by Director Ford. Call the question. All in favor? Motion carries. And then we've got information report here, financial impact analysis. Are you speaking to that, Sarah, or is Suzanne? I see Suzanne here.
Yep, I think I'm speaking to that one.
Yeah, go ahead, Suzanne.
Did the financial statements already go through? Sorry, I missed that. I thought it was before, that's why.
No.
Okay. So I'll do the report first and then we'll go back to the financials. Okay.
No, the financial statements the audited statements were passed.
Oh, the audit, yes.
Okay.
I beg your pardon. Sorry, I didn't realize you were referring to that. Yeah, they've gone through.
Great. Yes, so this report is just basically a general view of what the province is providing to us and basically just giving some feedback as to our financial impact at this time. The province realizes that the COVID-19 pandemic is going to affect local government's ability to have proper cash flow because we're having to expend a lot more funds just for working remotely and things like that. The province has mentioned that the requisitions for regional districts are still mandated as of due on April 10th as normal legislation, as the normal date due for the legislation. So to make it easier for municipalities to be able to pay the requisitions, which have already been sent and submitted to the province online. And I did check online to see if there was a way to adjust the submission, and there wasn't any way. They've been processed. So the province, for helping local governments, including municipalities, they gave measures to help them by allowing local governments to borrow from their reserves without interest, which I think would be a great help. You're allowed to have these borrowings interest-free for 5 years or until the funds are needed, until there's a project that is required for those reserve funds. And municipalities have other additional processes they can do with their school taxes and with the MFA short-term borrowing, which is like a requisition. When you don't receive your funds till August, you can actually use this MFA short-term borrowing, and they've extended it for 2 years, so you don't have to pay it back right after 1 year, which is what the normal process was. And I don't know too much about the school tax revenue because it's a municipality-based process. And so I'll go into just what the impacts are so far on the SLRD. So to ensure that everybody could work remotely, we did add on a few expenses, mostly just printers and scanners and like the extra power bars, and we added some new memory for all the laptops, and we actually bought new SSDs for the laptops. Unfortunately, we weren't able to install those SSDs in time. It was pretty much the laptops were ready, and then they were sent off for the staff to be able to work from home. There was a few expenses so far that were unexpected. So the Pinecrest Wastewater Treatment Plant emergency cleaning, which is estimated to be $12,000 to $14,000, that was definitely unexpected. There was a higher increase in the inflow for the sewer, and we're assuming it's due to people having to stay in place and maybe people going back to their home in Pinecrest and staying there. But that seems to be rectifying itself. But we did have to hire some emergency cleaning, which I haven't received the invoices yet. And then we'll discuss with ARD Director Tony Rainbow what options we feel can remedy this, because there isn't a line item in the budget that could cover this cost at this time. We upped the cleaning expenses for Goldbridge Community Complex. Thankfully, the post office, who actually has their rental there, offered to assist with 1/3 of the cost. So they're going to cover 1/3 of the extra cleaning costs. And so that one we should be able to cover under that cost center, but it also depends on future expenses, because that cost center, the Goldbridge Community Complex, basically all it was doing this year was just the regular janitorial work. So if there's anything else unexpected that comes up, we'll have to just review that service and where we are going to pull things from to make it work. There's other effects that may happen in the future that could affect our financial statements. So we're using more legal assistance. We do have a budget for that though, and it is a fairly healthy budget because we do want to make sure we have the necessary expense line in the budget for any year for legal costs, because we don't have internal legal advice. We're purchasing potentially a couple of new ArcGIS licenses So we have multiple people being able to do mapping. So in case one person isn't able to, we can fall back to another staff member to do the same kind of mapping. There are about 3 staff members right now that have that ability to do an emergency map or any kind of mapping needed. And potentially we were going to be paying for portable hand washing stations at the landfills and the transfer stations. We are looking to source rentals because rentals will be covered under the EMBC, but I don't think we've been able to source rentals. And so we're thinking that we might actually purchase them. And we'll have a discussion on that if we do end up purchasing them, just because I do think it's a good thing to have at the transfer station, some kind of ability to sanitize. And so I offered some strategies on how we could mitigate some of the deficits that could happen. There's that borrowing interest-free from reserves, which I think would be a great option. And there's also the operational surplus reserve funds that are available in certain services. And there's also just reducing costs where you can, and then deferring any operational and capital budgeted items that might be able to be done the next year or even in a couple of years, just to ensure that we're not overspending and then getting into a deficit situation. So there's also potential for less revenues. I'm not sure if it'll impact tipping fees, but it could. Less people could be using the transfer stations just because of the whole pandemic. And we could receive less building inspection revenues, but it depends also on what construction is going to happen. I'm assuming that construction might not happen this year as a normal year. And so we're going to work closely with the provincial government, of course, and the municipalities just to make sure that we're going to make this work for everybody. And yeah, that's basically it.
Great. Thank you very much, Suzanne. Any questions for Suzanne?
One really kind of an aside, it's just that farmers markets will be looking for hand washing stations too, no doubt. So maybe be ready to share that information, or, you know, just by the by. I think that I was happy with the report and I thank you for it.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Chair, can you hear me?
Who said that? Doug?
Yes.
Director Race, go ahead.
Yeah, just so you know, I've been able to follow the meeting. I think everything is working except you seeing me. I see you, I hear you, and now you hear me. So just so you know that. So my question for Suzanne was, if we do get into the position of borrowing from reserves, I think I'll just actually more of a comment. First of all, I guess, which reserves might we borrow from and to what extent are there reserves? And the comment would be that if we do get there, to have a plan to, I guess we would have to tax a little bit more in the following years to repay those reserves, to get them back up to where they are. And so we'll need some balanced approach to that, so it's not too much of a hit in 1 year. But I was just wondering what reserves are available and to what extent do we have that ability?
Yeah, so being a regional district, each reserve fund is separated in its own service. So pretty much all the services have their own reserve funds. So in general government, we have the capital reserve funds and we have the operational surplus reserve funds, but also in other services like the Goldbridge Community Club, they also have those same reserves as well. So, and yeah, we would have 5 years to pay back the borrowing from the reserves. So I would strategically spread out any kind of increases. Of course, try not to increase more than necessary for sure.
And just, if I might follow up, but if we didn't have a reserve that applied to a particular need, because it's already designated to a particular service, that would leave us the option then, if I understand you correctly, of going to MFA for short-term borrowing.
No, that short-term borrowing is a revenue anticipation borrowing, and it's only for when you don't have the requisition funds. So we generally are okay. We never usually do a short-term borrowing from MFA, but it is a possibility as well. But that wouldn't be interest-free, so it would be better to do the reserve transfer from reserve. So borrowing from reserve, sorry. But yeah, most services do have their own reserves, so it shouldn't be a problem.
So the short-term borrowing might be available if there was a significant default and we just didn't receive the actual monies for some period of time.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. Thank you. Any other questions for Suzanne? Okay, can I have a motion to receive the financial impact analysis? Moved by Director Richmond, seconded by Director Birch-Jones. Call the question. All in favour? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Director's reports. Chair's verbal report. I've got a couple of things, but first I'd like to go around and hear from everybody, do our little round table. And
Sorry, Tony, to interrupt. We had the two items that Director Birch-Jones pulled out of the consent agenda.
Oh, was that
9.12. It would be the minutes, I think. We'll do the AAC minutes first.
Right. And then what was the other one? Okay, so
they were both on the consent agenda, and the first one, I mean, I've already made the comment, just that there's been a little back and forth from the Area B AAC with staff as to how minutes go before the board and so on. And I think a lot of that was clarified when we reviewed the terms of reference at the March meeting that you were at, Chair Rainbow. But there was a request at that meeting to have the report that was presented attached to the minutes. And yet we're seeing the minutes as a board without that attachment. And then I read it's not the staff's practice to attach reports or attachments to the minutes for the board. I'm just thinking that we're either sharing the minutes with the board or we're not in their entirety, and it's just a comment. And the other comment that I wanted to make, I can't even remember now, going back to consent.
I've got Director Ford, Director Weed.
The community grant funding, I think I asked on 6.2.1.
Maybe we can hear that separately though.
Yeah,
okay.
Yep. So I have Director Ford and then Director Weed. Director Ford.
This could be a comment, it could be a question to staff, or just something to think about. If we, because the agenda and all meeting materials of any of our committees are public and saved on the SLRD website, is it not staff practice to add all of those attachments to minutes because they were previously made available through our channels, and to create enormous packages that then have to be downloaded each time? If you are interested in the attachments that would have been attached to that previous AAC meeting, you would just go back to that AAC meeting agenda and see the attachments at that time, rather than constantly reattaching information that was previously made available. I understand that it's a lot more digging and going back and forth, and ideally we would have a much more robust document center that would make it very easy to find that. Is that the reason that staff don't currently attach that information?
Through the chair, that particular document was passed out at the meeting itself. It was sort of a walk-on to the meeting. It actually contains some information that I thought was a bit injurious to our staff as well. And so because we don't normally attach these things and because of the content of that particular attachment, I just didn't feel it was appropriate to attach it to the minutes.
So who actually received that report then? Just the people at the meeting?
Yes.
And it was received at that meeting?
It was handed out.
But would that not become part of the minutes then?
Not the minutes. We don't attach anything to our board minutes. We don't attach anything. It would be, if it had been provided ahead of time as part of the presentation, it could have been part of the meeting package. When people walk things on, they aren't necessarily captured in the meeting package, but they're certainly not captured as part of the minutes.
Okay.
We've never had, as far as I've seen in my time here, we've never had an attachment to minutes.
Yeah. Director Weeb.
Yes, I kind of remember this being discussed quite a few meetings ago, and I thought it was pretty well agreed that we would like to see the attachments because we're not all present at the meeting. I have no clue what went on there.
I'm not sure that discussion. Like in the context of attachments to minutes or attachment like meeting packages?
I think what we seem to be getting at here, and I think what Director Birch-Jones is concerned about, is that is sort of transparency. Is that if things are discussed in a meeting, then somehow that should be shared. That whether it's part of the minutes or whether it's reported back to the board another way. Am I sort of paraphrasing you there, Director Birch-Jones?
Thank you. And there was a specific request that that report be attached to the minutes. And probably as part of that was the intention that it do be seen by the board. And you're quite correct that of course we could, I think, laboriously go back and find that if we were interested, but you wouldn't necessarily know to do that. And I'm just looking for some consistency in how this communication goes back and forth between the committees and the board.
Okay.
So it doesn't have to be resolved today, it's a comment.
Okay, thank you. Director Elliott.
Director Ford made a good point, is that even in minutes, you can put a link to what the presentation package was to a committee. So in the name of transparency, even if something's walked on, it should still be added to the committee package, and the minutes can be published with a link to what was presented at the meeting. Because I agree, I just don't want my agenda packages to get longer and longer and longer. If I've got questions based on the minutes, then if there is a link there, then I'll go back and look at what was presented at the meeting and do my own research.
Thank you. Director Demir. Director Demir, you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's a policy on presentations that they have to be presented prior to the meeting so that they're attached to the agenda. Is there any policy to that? Like how many days before? Rather than having a walk on to that meeting?
Kim, do you want to speak to what the practice is at the committee level? I mean, at the board level, we do ask for those ahead of time and they're part of the agenda package. But I'm not sure if it's more informal at the committee level, Kim.
Yeah, in this case, we don't really get a lot of informal presentations, but with respect to the presentation that we're referring to, it was very last minute. And so normally that could be, included. In this case, it wasn't included in the package. It was walked on.
It was a presentation that was asked to be made to the board, but the committee, the presenter was directed to the AAC to present. And so that's how that happened.
Yeah, that's.
Could we move on to 6.2.1?
Hold on a minute. Let's just make sure we have a path forward with this issue. Mayor Elliott, Director Elliott suggested that within the minutes, with something like this, we could simply have a link, and then people could click on that link and then have access to the report. Do you see a problem with that, Kim?
Not at all.
No, I think that would be a brilliant idea. Thank you.
So let's have a motion to that effect. That moved by Director Crompton, seconded by Director Birch-Jones. Kristen, read out the motion to me.
Well, it's in the minutes of, is it in the minutes of committee meetings to include a link to the meeting package?
Yeah, that would be.
Okay.
That would cover it.
That works.
That would work.
I knew you could do that.
Oh, I could move that.
Okay. No, it was already moved. You seconded it. Director Crompton moved it. So, Director DeMille.
There should be a statement somewhere in the policy on committee meetings that presentations have to be presented prior to the meeting, so that everybody knows that what's coming up. To be blindsided at a meeting, I don't think is fair to the committee members.
With this, normally that would be so. What happened with this particular thing was a resident of Area B asked to present to the board on an agricultural matter, and what I ruled at the time was that's sort of disregarding the AAC. If you have an agricultural matter that you want to come to the board, it should go to the AAC, and then be processed that way. Otherwise, there's no point in having an AAC. And so because of the time constraints there, the AAC meeting was already set, and it was added at the last minute. But yeah, normally I would agree with you. It should be done in advance and included in the meeting package. But I think given all that, what the discussion we've just had, I think that if in future, if within the minutes we have those links, so that people can research further and read further if they wish to, then that seems to cover the concerns that people had. I'm hoping it does.
Okay.
Did I call the question on that motion, Kristen?
Sorry, did you call it?
Did I call the question on that motion? I did.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So in that case, 6.2.1, Dr. Birch-Jones, that's down to you as well.
Oh, I was really pleased to see those rural dividend applications were approved, and I wondered if it could be the Area B one could be added to the next NEDIC agenda. Does that work? Patricia, I see you there.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Did you want a little bit of an update, an overview on this, or was that the only question?
Director Birch-Jones, do you have a question for?
I would like that, but I mean, I read it. It was just very good news, but I see you wanted to follow up a bit with the respective directors. So yes.
Yeah, so it was very good and surprising news. So as you recall, we submitted 3 applications last year to the last intake for the rural dividend program for areas A, B, and C for $10,000 each for projects in those communities. And then shortly after we submitted those applications, we were notified by the province that the rural dividend program had been suspended in order to redirect those funds to the province's struggling forestry industry. And that the program had been suspended and that the applications, my understanding was that they would be kept on file, but that nothing was being considered at that point through rural dividend. And then in early April, I received a phone call from the province saying that they had opened up a one-time community fund, and they were looking at some of the applications that had been submitted through the last intake of rural dividend and looking at projects that could potentially lead to some economic development opportunities in rural areas, and wanted to advise us that the funds that we had applied for, $10,000 for each of the 3 projects, were available through this fund, and did we want to proceed with that? And we needed to respond very quickly, so we very quickly said yes. We would like to do that. But the applications, so we didn't have to resubmit anything, so it's just entirely based on the applications that we had previously submitted. So my understanding is we do need to stick with those 3 projects, recognizing that we're all facing some additional challenges in the COVID-19 pandemic times. They've extended the project timeline a little bit for us, so we have 3 years to do those, to complete those projects. So yeah, so we just wanted to provide the board with a bit of an update on that, some information, good news, and then I would need to, we'd probably need to discuss plans for moving forward. So as noted, the projects were applied for through rural dividend. So we had outlined those in the application at that time. So just moving forward, it would be the 3 projects that we had applied for, and next steps will be to just further develop those plans a little bit and issue RFQs, I guess, for the work moving forward, and a timeline. As I said, they have extended the project timeline, so it's not something we have to finish tomorrow, but also don't want to sit on it for too long, that's for sure.
Great, thank you, Patricia. Kim was waving at me a while ago. I thought she had something to say, but she seems to have disappeared.
I think she was just saying goodbye.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Very good. Any questions for Patricia?
Just a comment that maybe if we do have a NEDIC meeting on May 14th, Patricia, maybe just a pencil in. I'd like to do that remotely. We'll see.
Yeah, Kristen, had we, I had assumed that would be remotely, just given our new virtual world. But I think that's easy enough to add to the agenda.
Geez, I could attend a NEDIC meeting without having to go anywhere.
That would be very exciting, Chair Rainbow. Thank you.
Okay, so.
The motion to receive that.
The motion to receive it, please. Just moved by Director Richmond, seconded by Director Birch-Jones. Call the question. All in favour? Opposed? Motion carries. While Patricia's there, I should just mention that she's another one of our staff who's been working 8 days a week. In fact, I think all of our staff have been working 8 days a week. And Patricia's been doing a lot with Sarah on the EOC work, and certainly appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, we will now go then to the Chair's verbal report, and we'll start that with just a quick roundup. I thought I'd do AB and Lillooet as one little group, and then C and Pemberton, and then Whistler, then Squamish, and then I'll just shut up. I'll say something at the end. So, Director DeMere, tell me, Area A. There it is.
Thoughts on the go. There's no ands or buts. Not as busy as the staff though. So I've after about couple of weeks of going back and forth with a community support program for a food bank, an alternate to a food bank. We're a pretty small community. We've actually got it up and running as of Monday. So we partnered with the Lillooet Food Bank, and they're doing a coupon program with our little grocery store we have in Goldbridge. So it's actually up and running. And thank you to Kirsten and Tony and all the other people that have helped me work through it and make it happen. We definitely have a lot of non-resident property owners up here sheltered in place, and it has actually had an effect on our post office because people are getting their mail deferred over to the Goldbridge post office, and we've had some issues there, and it's getting worked through, and hopefully we'll get better as time goes on. We are going to be having some tree planters coming into the Braylorn area, and it's starting on Monday. And I've had a hard time getting a hold of the owner of the organization that is the company that's coming in. Finally got a hold of him this morning, and we're having a call tomorrow with Angela and myself, and looks like their communications person. And what I'm requesting is a news release by the SLRD to our community so that people are informed what's going on. The Marshall Lake group, which is has not been an official society or anything, is working at it right now, and they may become a committee under the BRVCA. So that's one I'm helping out with. On the Community Wildfire Protection Plan, I want to do a prescription. So I met with Bruce Morrow, who developed the program, and we had a conversation, and the #1 priority is, again, the Marshall Lake area. So I've had some communications with them and want to have a meeting with them to see what their comments are regarding it. Our local Rod and Gun Club had to renew their lease or the arrangement with BC Hydro, and they declined it as BC Hydro put a lot more environmental concerns onto the lease agreement, so they've voided it. So down the road, I need to work with them on a new location. On top of that, we've had a couple of the different communities now ask for more no firearms discharge signs. So I'm also working through that. The Hurley FSR normally gets opened up on the May long weekend. So I've been in contact with the ministry and the roads for service roads, and I'll continue that. I'm just waiting until see what happens at the end of this provincial state of emergency and see what's going to happen. But it's going to be controversial either way, whether we keep it unopened or we do open it. Either way, it's going to be very controversial. And that's about it.
You're on mute, Tony.
Can you hear Area B?
Tony, you're on mute.
No, she can't hear me, I guess. Oh, I'm on mute. Oh.
No, you're not anymore. You were.
It was. Director Burst Jones, Area B. Thank you. Who put me on mute?
I've had some pretty heartfelt pleas to take the Douglas Trail Highline Road forward to the highest levels possible. So Russell, Sal, I'll be in touch with you. I'll try and get some guidance from some people who've already done some work on this. And I don't know, Kristen, is there a staff member I should check in with for some background or support?
Well, let's talk.
Okay. And then the other huge one for us, I mean, the big bar, the millions of dollars spent by Peter Kiewit and Sons up there, and they've done some pretty impressive blasting, which they've publicized widely, but they're not going to be able to finish the job. Now they're looking at alternatives. I did write a letter as Area B, so that sort of correspondence, would that normally go on the board package, or do I, because I'd like the board to know when I send that letter out. Anyway, there's a call about the Big Bar landslide tomorrow and the imminent blockage to the endangered salmon stocks yet again this year. I'll stop there. Our community services are running pretty well in the COVID. Everything is fairly quiet and stable, but I know some of the volunteers that have been running back and forth are sort of hitting their exhaustion point. I don't know how long they'll keep maintaining the service, but they've done very well so far. And thanks for your help with the food bank, Chair Roundball.
Bob. Hello, Bob. Bob, are you there?
Who are you calling about, Tony?
Bob Weeb. Doesn't seem to be there. Okay, let's go to Area C. Director Mack.
Yeah, I've been in touch with Kristen and Sarah and Angela on numerous occasions. We have a fire up on the Highline Road at 17 kilometers. So the crew, actually, the people from Ponderosa use the equipment that we've been providing to them the last 3 or 4 years. And they went and worked on the fire for 2 days and put it out, and it was human caused. We've had some issues with the Anderson Lake dock, people wanting to put their boats in the water and that, and Naquatqua, they want everything all shut down at the moment, but we're working through that right now. I think everything's, going pretty well. I've talked to Mayor Mike, and I can say he's been doing an excellent job getting the word out on their Facebook page and all that stuff. Ours is doing, I think, better now. I think at first we were just seeing the information that we were getting out was very, very official, and sometimes people don't pay as much attention to that as they do to the format that say Pemberton's using. I haven't seen what others have been using, but anyways, I think we've got better at that. I watch Facebook because there's a lot of people that make comments on there about what we are or what we aren't doing. So I think for the most part, everything is moving along pretty well. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Mack. Let's go to Pemberton, Director Richmond.
Regular business that we're trying to push through. There's a bunch of policy stuff that we're trying to complete. We just finished our cycling network plan. I had development guidelines for hillside development. So there's some policy stuff we're still managing to get through. Some other works. Oh, there's a helicopter overhead now. Some of the other works that were kind of pressing for us, we had a big issue around our wastewater treatment plant where some of the sediment from the Meager slide had completely covered our outfalls. So we've managed to get that work mostly done before the river levels started coming up. So we just made it in time, and we're feeling pretty good about that, although it's a costly project for us and that's going to hurt us. So that's sort of some of the ongoing stuff. And then in terms of COVID and the pandemic, I'm I remain quite pleased with how Pemberton's reacted in general. You know, like everywhere, it took a little while for people to sort of wrap their heads around the measures and then really comply, but I feel like people have been behaving quite responsibly, respectfully. For sure, there's some chatter on Facebook. There's occasional shaming and garbage that comes out. But I'd say for most part, the dialogue in the community, and there's concerns around our mountain bike parking. We've had a ton of mountain bikers, a lot coming from Whistler, you know, to our local parks that we've kept open like 1 mile. So there's concern and conversation. There's a lot of concern in our community around finance and business. We don't have a ton of businesses, but we have an important little business community. And yeah, there's a lot of concern as people are trying to figure out what supports are available to them, and just residents in general on their finances, not just businesses. So those concerns are out there, but I'm pleased with the dialogue within the community, the tone. There's a lot of respect, a lot of support, a lot of genuine affection. So yeah, I'm all things considered, I feel like I'm in a pretty lucky spot through all this. So it's been a lot of work, but again, I feel like we're headed the right direction as a community. There's still lots of stuff to sort out. And just so you know, I meant to be on a call at 3 o'clock. So in a few minutes when the call comes in, I will bail on you guys. So I apologize who I miss.
Okay, thanks, Director Ishmael. Scotty, you.
Sure, Rainbow, can I just get one thing in?
Okay.
Trust. I've been noticing Mayor Richmond's been adding more and more clothes all morning. I was just going to suggest he might try to burn some of that firewood he's got.
I'm outside. I'm always outside if I can be.
Thank you, Director Mack. Director Weeb, Lillooet.
Yes, I'm here, I think. I haven't heard very much of anybody. I'm sorry, it's got to be the connections here in Lillooet, I'm assuming. Everything here is as good as could be expected due to the virus. Virtual council meetings, we did all agree to not raise our taxes and not raise our utility bills. And we did sign so that we could possibly get an intermittent loan if we needed it through MFA to pay the various people that need to be paid out of our tax funds, seeing as we've deferred ours until September 30th for collection date to make things a little easier for people. On another good note, we have, through the Chamber of Commerce, they've come up with a great idea where they are taking COVID-19 family pictures on your porch with a donation to the local food bank. So I'm not sure exactly how well that's going, but I thought it was a great idea. I wasn't sure if I should bring this up or not. I was wondering if anybody else on the board here, if their communities are affected by the CN rail fiasco going on, because we're affected by that. I think we have about a dozen people in town that have been laid off or are just hanging with the mill down. Well, I shouldn't say the mill is down. They've come back with one shift so that they could apply for the government grant. Isn't that lovely? And yes, I know I'm live and I'm negative, but it just kind of, that's the only reason I could see them coming back for one shift here. What else can I tell you about what's going on? I know that the tax money is being deferred to the province for the school board and whatnot, that has been deferred till September 30th as well. So that gives us a bit of a break. So other than that, there's food deliveries going on for anybody who does not want to go out or is unable to go out. The community is stepping up, lots of volunteer work. As of right this moment, I don't believe any of our tourist attractions will be open. The campground is closed, the Miyazaki house is closed, the museum is closed, and any monies to go towards stuff has been deferred until further notice. And that's about it for me, and hopefully.
Thank you. Whistler.
Chair, do you still have quorum if I cut out here? You're all good?
I think we are 1, 2, 3,
4, 5, 6. Yeah. Okay. Bye, everybody. Sorry, I gotta go.
Bye.
Okay.
Just in time, Jack.
Whistler, who's going first?
Mike, I was going to say, I'm not calling you, so I don't know why you'd have any reason to leave.
Bye-bye.
I don't know. I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of very familiar experiences for your communities and our community. We're going through our, revisit of the budget upcoming. We're focused on trying to get back to business as usual, as much as we can, getting people working from home and then getting some people back into Municipal Hall. Adjusting to what appears to be probably a really thin tourism summer. Dr. Henry, as you probably all know, has been talking about it's unlikely that in 2020 she will remove the regulation around groups of over 50, which dramatically changes the way Whistler does things. Trying to figure out how to ensure that people can access parks and trails and all that kind of thing. I think one of the Karen Elliott and I have been talking about the recommendations that Vancouver Coastal Health has been making about making sure that you get playgrounds and parks and trails all open and usable for your community, which is challenging because there's people in our community who think that that's, bad behavior that we would open those. But I think Dr. Henry's been very clear from the beginning that the mental and physical health of our communities is crucially linked to those facilities being available. So it's how we do that in a good way. We've been talking a little bit about maybe one-way trails, trail hosts who help people understand what it means to be in these places. We closed all of our parks very early, obviously not because it was recommended by VCH, but because we were just overwhelmed by people partying in our parks and really didn't see any other angle to prevent that other than a closure. So now opening them up is a little challenging because people perceive those as sort of recommendations from the provincial government when they're not. I think that's good. I'm sure Jen will pick up on anything I missed. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Crompton. Director Ford.
Not to repeat what's been said, but our Whistler Community Social Services organization has been really called to action in a way that they never could have anticipated. And with help from the district, help from many community groups, we've been supporting the food bank. They closed most services, so our solitary revenue, or not solitary, but the bulk of the revenue for Whistler Community Services has been the Reuse It Center and the Rebuild It Center. And we closed both of those facilities on March 14th. So we're looking at losses of about $400,000 a month, which go to fund our food bank, our outreach services, all kinds of parent and taught programs for all sorts of people in our community. And all of that has been redirected to the food bank. We moved the food bank from its current location on Nestor's Road, which is a small location on the 3rd floor of a brand new building, to a much larger facility known as the Whistler Convention Center, or Conference Center. And we saw growth of demand from the food bank from an average of 40 visits a week to almost 600 visits last week. And the only limitation on that is that we run out of food. So we're seeking funding. We've been applying to every Food Banks BC, Food Banks Canada, trying to attract as much funding as we can. We've hired volunteer grant writer to take on seeking more funds. And now that the CERB funding and EI funding has started to flow, we're hopeful that that will put some of our community in a little better position to pay the bills and feed their kids. And we're certainly trying to work with the Pemberton Food Bank and Sea to Sky Community Services, Squamish Helping Hands, et cetera, so that we're supporting the whole corridor. And thank you to Tony for your work on that piece. That's been really important for the whole corridor. Yeah, I think we're all in the same but different position. We're all dealing with it as we can. We're having good days. We're having hard days. I think the outcome of this and our recovery is going to see a long hangover effect of how this affects people in our communities, and we need to be alive to it and anticipate how we can bring people back to a happy place. So we're all in a tough spot, but I think we're well positioned and we've got great teams to work together to come out of this together. So that's it.
Thank you, Director Ford. Squamish, Director Race, it's all down to you. You can say what you like.
Thank you. Is the mayor not going to have anything to say?
He's gone. She left us.
Oh, she did. Oh, for heaven's sakes. Okay, I didn't realize that. So a couple of things. First of all, it's nice to see you guys, even if it's only on a computer screen now, because I was away for 3 weeks, as you know, from February 22nd until March 13th. And I came back and walked into self-quarantine, which I didn't anticipate. It took me out for a couple of weeks. And so I missed meetings in Squamish that I could have attended, except I had to attend by telephone. And now we have this regime. So kind of miss you guys. Look forward to having a coffee or a lunch, or at least to drive up the highway with you sometime soon. But in Squamish, we've had, similar to other communities, suffered a lot with businesses, primarily in the tourism sector, being forced to close down, in the service sector. There was two significant things that I'll report on, though. One is our budget this year, at least for the moment, came in with only a 1.9% tax increase, which is, in my time on council and even before that, is I think one of the lowest almost in memory. And considering the fact that we are growing and have growth pressures, we were quite pleased with that. Remains to be seen if we're going to have to reopen that financial plan over the next couple of weeks with some of the unanticipated costs and lack of revenues that I think we're all suffering through. The second was we are building or having built by Land Sea. Remember the company that was promoting a possible work camp in Britannia? That's a Squamish company, and they are in that business. And through BC Housing funding, the District of Squamish has allocated a portion of the waterfront park, which is at the moment undeveloped. And you may recall that from the Southern Tour last fall, adjacent to the new construction. We're going to put, I think it's, if I recall, it was either 48 or 72 single unit or single occupancy units there for vulnerable population. It's temporary. It will expire in, I think, November. But our vulnerable population took sort of a double whammy. And one was the shelter is being replaced by the Under One Roofs project. That Under One Roofs project won't be finished until October, November. And so there's a delay and a gap there. And the second is a small motel in our downtown area that housed a lot of people who were sort of in a vulnerable state. Evicted them because it's being demolished for redevelopment. And so to accommodate that population, the temporary structures will be put up, and they'll be there until approximately November. And it's anticipated they will then transfer to the Under One Roofs project, which will be complete and will have housing for the vulnerable population. So that's going to happen. It's practically, the servicing is happening as we speak, and the building will start imminently, and hopefully we'll have people populated in there and occupying it within the next couple of weeks. And I think that's all I'll report right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Race. Area D, we were doing quite well with COVID and various things like that, but until last weekend, we had that horrendous fire up in the Upper Squamish. And I was up there the other day, and I couldn't believe, I've been around wildfires before, but I've never seen anything quite like this. It was just amazing what that fire did. Where it originated, it was basically right next to Camp Summit, which is Jeff Park's establishment up there. And somehow it jumped right over the top of Camp Summit and landed the other side of it, and then took off from there. How he was not affected, I just don't know. And then it sort of followed along the road. And then from the valley bottom, it did another leap about 400, 500 meters up into the hillside. And you can't see anything in between. You know, it was just amazing and scary. And we're just so fortunate that nobody was hurt, nobody was killed. But the only casualty that has been reported is one cat, which is sad for the owner, but pretty lucky for everybody else. The horses, that somebody told me that the horses all died. That was incorrect. They were let loose and they found their way down to the river, and they were okay, and so on. So that's the big news from Area D. And I'm going to move right on into my next thing on my verbal, and that is I'd just like to touch on the food bank. Patricia's done a lot of work in crafting messaging to go out about this. We've the Sea to Sky Service is now on their website. They have a hot button. It's called Feed the Need. And if you click on that, you can donate to Whistler, you can donate to Pemberton, you can donate to Squamish, to Lillooet, or you can make a general donation, which will be directed somewhere within the regional district, depending on where the need is. So it might support SAL up in Area A, it might be directed specifically at Mount Curry, that area. It gives us some flexibility there. But that's launched now, and we're working at sort of getting that out into all of the communities. So for example, that's going to go out on the Furry Creek Community Association network. And I'm really hoping to sort of sell this idea of neighbors helping neighbors, and that there will be people in some of the areas in this regional district that are better placed to help than others. And so really pushing that. The third thing I want to talk about is just about 40 minutes after the RCMP left their roadblock on the Squamish Valley Road, two people were in there on the banks of the river with a campfire and cooking their supper. And if you look across into the hillside, you could still see fires burning. So you can imagine the residents were just a little upset about that. It was insensitive at best, possibly reckless. Absolutely no way they should have been doing that. Unfortunately, we don't have the ability to impose a ban on fires. The minute that fire started, the District of Squamish put in a ban. No fires, no open fires in the District of Squamish. Because one of the unintended consequences of that is a report I got from a family up in the Upper Squamish, whose daughter, teenage daughter, informed her mum that so the chatter on social media in Squamish is let's all go to Upper Squamish because we can light fires up there. What I'm asking for, I've explored with Sarah what possibilities we could have to sort of put up some signs or whatever. And we don't have at the moment the bylaw capability to actually impose a ban. But Kim's working on that with Kristen, and we should have, within a couple of weeks, we should have something that we can bring back and ask for some action on it. But what I would like to do, regardless of the fact that we don't have the legal ability to do it, I would like to have some signs that say no open fires. I'd like to have them posted at the Pilchuck Bridge and at other sites along the Upper Squamish. They may not prevent all people from lighting fires. There will still be some that will just ignore them. We don't have the ability to enforce at the moment, but what that would do is to show that community that we're trying the best we can to support them, and it would have a positive psychological impact for them. And I've already got offers of help to put the signs in place. So I would like sort of approval from this group, from the board, for us to produce some signs and to install them preferably by the weekend if we can. So I guess I'm making a resolution and asking for that permission. Director DeMere.
I'm just wondering if you wouldn't go to the wildfire service, the BC Wildfire Service, and have them make up some official signs, because those orders are already in place. No category 2 or no category 3 open burning ban that's on right now.
Sarah, can you comment on that?
Through you, Chair, Director DeMere is absolutely correct, but campfires are still permitted.
That's right. So, you know, one of my concerns with the campfires also is that the rec sites are basically closed. All the provincial parks are all closed, but people can still have campfires on Crown land. It's legal to do. Maybe the SLRD could make a request to the government to have them also closed. It is an issue for sure. We had some visitors up to the valley, and they had some campfires in areas that were just basically Crown land, and you can't do anything about it.
Well, I would like Sarah to continue to work with BC Wildfire and anybody else she can to get a provincial ban. But in the meantime, given that that fire is not completely out yet in Area D, there are still hot spots. Yesterday when I was up there, there's still smoke pouring out of the trees, and there's still a crew of, I don't know, it must be at least 30 people up there doing whatever that work's called on the ground, where you're sort of grubbing the fire out. And so given all that, I would like to have some signs in place for this weekend.
And through you, Chair, if I may, I spoke this afternoon to the Cedar Sky Resource District manager at Flynn Road, and there is no appetite to introduce a ban at this time, a campfire ban.
But we could still do that ourselves.
We cannot introduce a ban because we do not have a bylaw, but we could put up signage if that felt that would be useful with no enforcement capabilities.
But if the signs were in place, one, the residents will feel better about it, and it would deter some people. And two, it would give them a way of politely saying to somebody, look, there's a sign that says no fires. So.
Through you, Chair, I agree. It would certainly provide some psychological support. The the people who lit the campfire walked past a very large sign saying, Squamish Nation, IR land, no access. They walked around a gate, past a very large sign, down to the area where they decided they'd like to have their campfire. So I think just as long as the residents are clear, we have no enforcement capability for those signs. Just to manage their expectations.
Yeah. So,
Here,
where did that come from?
from Doug.
Oh, go ahead, Dr. Race, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just curious what we would say in the signs. You know, are we saying something in language like, you know, campfires banned? Or are we saying we request that you don't do it, or the neighbors request you not have campfires, it's dangerous, or something like that? In other words, more of a request as opposed to trying to get out the message that we're banning it when we're really not banning it.
Yeah, a good point.
And I just, if I might, I mean, if we say they're banned, but we can't enforce it, then eventually we will get to the point where we will want to ban them if we can get to that point. And so I'd be inclined to try the request thing first, just so that if we ever do go to a ban, we can have a stronger sign rather than the same old sign that everybody ignored before.
Okay. I
That's a
think
suggestion.
I think that's a good point, and I'd be quite happy to just move ahead and work with that. So we could leave it there unless anybody else has any comment. We'll leave it at that. Director Crumpton.
Just wondering how we would be funding this, because I'm sure that other areas throughout the regional district will want to do the same thing, and this is going to become a bit of a sign program. And should we develop a like should go through some process to be funded? Because I just don't think it's one decision. I think it probably unlocks a number of decisions to follow it.
Yeah, I think you make a very good point. And the only reason I feel any sort of urgency about this one is because of what happened last weekend, and because of the evacuation and the loss of homes and things like that. I was planning for anything we do with the Upper Squamish this weekend. I would go to EAD with a proposal to spend select funds to pay for that. But I agree with you. We need to look at all of the areas, the electoral areas, and that's maybe something we can put on the agenda for the next EAD meeting.
And further to that, I just think if this is going to be something that we go down the path and start doing, it'd be good to do it with some policy behind it, especially when we're going to be doing signage that's not backed by actual closures.
Yeah.
I'm nervous about communications that set up expectations without any follow through. And it would be good to consider it, whether it's at EAD or here, it doesn't matter to me. It's just, it would be good to consider the supporting policy.
Okay.
Hey, Tony, can you hear me, Tony?
Go ahead, yes.
Yeah, the only problem I see with putting up signs saying anything about, no fires, or if you don't have the backing of the province, then what are we actually accomplishing? Because people will say, well, you don't have any authority to, you may suggest we don't have any campfires, but the actual fact is, if the Ministry of Forests is saying that you're allowed to have them, and they check the websites and see that, then I think it's far better to do more of a campaign of just being responsible. It's extremely dry now. We haven't had any amount of rain for a whole month, so we're way into the the high, and probably getting close to extreme in some places. I think it would be far better to spend the time or, you know, getting the word out that it is extremely dry out here. You know, we don't need campfires or any kind of fires. Like this fire here was started by somebody doing a slash burn or whatever. So I mean that wasn't started by a campfire. That was created by stupidity. And I mean, we've had the same thing in Pemberton. We've still had people burning their bloody grass fields. Like, you go, I mean, I put up with that for the 18 years I was the fire chief. I mean, it's just stupid, beyond stupid. So I think it's just, you have to be constantly getting the word out that, and have the fire departments even putting the word out in their jurisdictions about, you know, it's extremely dry now, you know, manpower is at a critical stage here, being used for anything and everything. So you have to be doubly careful out there. But unless the province, if the province on one hand is saying, oh yeah, you can have a campfire, then for us to say, well, you can't have a campfire, people will understand that we don't have the jurisdiction to actually stop it.
Yeah,
That's it.
Director DeMayor.
The BC Wildfire Service has a good brochure type of information on what constitute a campfire right now. So if you took that and put it up on a sign, like made a sign out of that literature, then you could share that. You could put that up. I've shared it on my Facebook page. Others have up in our community. But you can make sign out of it and put it up because there are pretty strict regulations on campfires. That way, if you see somebody that hasn't adhered to those regulations, then you can go after them. So you call the RAP line and off you go.
Yeah, because I'm listening to this, you're all making some really good points, and what I'm seeing as you're saying that is this particular circumstance. The Upper Squamish is the only, I think it's probably unique in the regional district at the moment for the kind of attention it's getting from Metro, from Whistler, from Squamish, you know, from within our own region as well. But people that don't want to pay attention to Bonnie Henry, people that are not paying attention to any signs anywhere. So maybe that's against my argument, put up signs, but that valley is getting inundated with visitors. The police turned away, well, I think between 70 and 100 cars the other day when the evacuation order was lifted. 70 and 100 to 100 cars driving up there. For what reason? Not essential travel, that's for sure. And I'm just looking for some way of supporting those people up there. But okay, just leave it with me, and I'll figure something out with the local community. So I'm done. Where does that take us to?
Item 10.2,
Yeah.
Lillooet Rec Center.
Good. Director Birch-Jones, speak to us.
I'm very excited to present this, and the amount on the agenda is incorrect. I'd like to move 263,535 from gas tax funds, Area B, Community Works, towards the energy efficiency project that is attached to your package.
Okay. And then
to the District of Lillooet. And I've talked to Suzanne and Kristen, and I've mentioned this before. This is towards lighting and energy efficiency and solar panels at the recreation center. And so the amount is now 263,535. And that's because we need some contingency funds in there and so on. And Suzanne has said we should word it to be up to this amount in the agreement. I'd like to move that.
And we need to add on to that resolution that this, I think you've got this already, Kristen, but this funding be subject to District of Lillooet entering into an SLRD Community Works Fund agreement regarding reporting requirements.
Yes.
So that would be encompassed in the resolution. Can I have a seconder for that, please? Seconded by Director Demare. Any discussion required? Any questions?
Suzanne kindly provided the template that was used between Area C and Pemberton for some community works funds towards the recreation center. And this is the same sort of model that we would be using.
Great, thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Wonderful.
Great. Correspondence. Request for funding Lillooet Fire Department Sprinkler Protection Unit, Area B. That's you again,
Yep.
Director Birch-Jones.
Yep. Lillooet Fire Department is requesting funding in the amount of $1,125 from Area B, Northern Area B Hydro Payment in lieu of taxes funding. This will go towards a grant that we're doing to the Agri-Spirit Fund for a sprinkler protection unit trailer. I would like to move that.
Seconded by Director Ford.
I'll second that.
Oh, Director Mack. Okay, you can second that. Any questions? Any comment? I'll call the question. All in favor?
I'll second that as well.
Thank you.
I'd like to second that.
Anybody else want to second it? Yeah,
We need
I
this.
believe Doug also seconded that.
Very good.
Thank goodness I was worried. Okay,
I
good.
probably don't
Thank
need to
you.
call the question then, do I? But I will. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. 11.2, Braylon Pioneer Museum Society Collection Management Project, Area A, Director Demare. You're muted. There you go.
I need to declare a conflict of interest. I have a non-procurement conflict of interest with my wife, Debbie Demare, and an indirect procurement conflict of interest with my daughter, Cara Demare.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So Graham, can you take care of Director Demare?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Then
Yeah.
I'd like to move this one in Sal's absence.
Okay, thank you. Seconded by Director Ford. Any question, any discussion on it? We're okay with it? Okay, I'm call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. You can bring him back now, please, Graham. Lillooet Agricultural Food Society Virtual Market, Area B.
And I'm really happy to move this one too. So this is funding also out of PILT, Area B, for a virtual farmers market, and it's in the amount of $10,082. I do that.
Who's that? Seconded by Director Ford. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Message from My Son Effa Radio Broadcasting for Emergencies. Director Mack, you have anything to tell us about that? No? What do we?
Yes, I totally agree with that. We have, through our PEVIS committee, approved that service for this fiscal year. So we'll just, we're having some discussions for next year. But anyways, that's already been approved.
So
You don't need a seconder?
What do we need for that then, Kristen? I don't need to.
I think we should just receive that, should we not?
Received. Okay, moved by Director Mack, seconded by Director Birch-Jones. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Kathy Peters wants to combat human sex trafficking. Now, when I read this the first time, I thought, boy, this is something we really should pay attention to. But as soon as I mentioned the name Kathy Peters, I got some feedback that we probably didn't want to be too involved with her. I see you shaking your head, Director Ford. You're muted.
I'll move receipt.
Move receipt. Director.
Sorry, my comment, my nonverbal comment is just surrounding, we get letters from her a lot, and while I appreciate the letters, they need to come with new information.
Okay. So
Second, move
Director
receipt.
Thompson, move receipt. Director Birchstone seconded that. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Any additional late business? Kristen, do we have anything that's not here?
Not additional, no. We have the late items that have already been added as part of the agenda approval, but no additional late.
Good, I must have the wrong agenda.
Chair?
No, I don't, sorry. Who said that?
Doug.
No, go ahead, Dr. Race.
So 11.6 is the request for letter of support from the for the Nordic Ski Championships.
I skipped over it. Sorry about that. 11.6. So request for a letter of support, Sea to Sky Event Group Society, who are hosting the host for Nordic Skiing Junior World Championships at Whistler Olympic Park. And that's an event that is sponsored by Squamish and Whistler collectively. So I would like to, and it's interesting because it's being held in Area D. So we're all involved. So I would like to move.
So sorry, the part about the request that we work with them to explore funding opportunities.
Chair?
Yeah, but they want a letter of support and that the SLRD work with the society to explore funding opportunities. So I'd like to move that as one motion.
Here.
Director Ford?
To staff, do you have the capacity to help with a funding mission right now? I would suggest that there are a number of nonprofits in the corridor that can help them seek funding, and I would amend the motion to write the letter of support, and it can be a robust letter of support, but that we don't have staff capacity to help them with funding.
No, I think where that funding thing came from, originally the Roger Stone and this events guy, they spoke with me and they asked me if I would be amenable to a request for any kind of financial support through Area D. And I said, yes, I think that's where that's come from. So I'm happy to take it out of the resolution, and I'll just deal with them separately and privately on that. So for the letter of support then, so I'll move that, and seconded by
Chair?
the Mayor, and I can't recognize the voice. Is that Director Race?
Yeah, I'll second it, but I also would like to speak to it briefly.
Go ahead.
So they came to Squamish Council, I think it was in February now because I was there. And we had a similar request. Where we landed, what they're looking for is evidence of local government support when they go out to look for funding. So it was not us going out to look for funding, it was them. But they want to know that we are in general support with the idea of having this event here, and we would be able to express that to any funding opportunities that they might come up with. But they, I think, have to do the work. We're not doing the work in Squamish either.
Okay, thank you. So the question is, are we prepared to give them a letter of support? That's the resolution. Any other discussion on that? No, I'll call a question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Sorry, I missed that. So now additional late business. So that's it. So we've got late business, correspondence or action, Aquaqua concerns for communities. I didn't get a chance to look at this. So what do we need here, Kristen?
Well,
This,
Director Mack and I had a meeting with the Naquaqua administrator and a counselor the other day, and we are working on a few items. They would like to have a joint letter or a joint communication go out with respect to our common messaging about staying at home and practicing social distancing, kind of targeting the Anderson Lake dock. And their concerns are the traffic that's coming through their community by people coming out to the dock. So that was one piece of it. And then we were looking at some possible signage and just a bit of a joint approach. Do you have anything else to add to that, Director Mack?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. Yeah, I would say that covers it. They just want us to be on the same page with any of our advertising as they are, or vice versa. So I think that's just a cooperative way of working together. So I think what we decided to do in that conversation we had the other day is definitely more than enough. Thanks.
so we need, or what do they need from us right now? Just a motion to say that we'll work with them and support them? What are they looking for?
Well, I think we could do a motion to work on a joint communication piece to be signed by the chair. We have, not that we need a motion, but we are going to work on some communication that's specifically talking about the Anderson Lake dock, recognizing that we aren't closing the dock at this time, and recognizing that we don't have the authority to, we're not able to restrict access to the dock due to our tenure terms for the foreshore, but recognizing their concerns about the traffic coming into their community. So it's a balancing act, because it's clear that people have to have places to go be outside, but recognizing that this traffic is coming through their community and their concerns. So to just echo that message of people should be staying at home and practicing social distancing.
Okay, so we just need a resolution to approve that we will continue to work with them.
I think we could just, a resolution that we work on a joint public
joint messaging. Yes?
Communication about.
Okay. You were breaking up there, Kristen. I couldn't hear. Russell, have you got something that you want to move?
Sorry.
Just move that we'll work on a joint communication with Naquaqua, and we will put that on our Facebook page where we're putting all our other information that goes out pretty much on a daily basis. Just add something to that.
Okay. Can I have a seconder for that? Director Ford. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Correspondence for information from Patrick Weiler. 13.2.
Move receipt.
Move receipt by Director Ford, seconded by Director Crompton. And I don't hear any comments or questions. I see a lot of people getting really tired of this meeting. So I'm going to call the question. All in favor, opposed, motion carries. Director's notion of easy for me to say, motus of notion. Done. Adjournment. Somebody want to move that? Director Crompton is and Director. Put your hand up if you want to move the adjournment. There we go. Listen, people, thank you very much for your cooperation and your patience. We've got through quite a lot of work today. This was our first ever virtual meeting. Fun, wasn't
Thank you very much, Graham, and
Sorry,
stay safe, everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Oliver's going to explode. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Where is Oliver? Stick him on. Let's see him.
Poor kid's been babysat by a TV screen this whole time.
Oh, well, tell him we said thank you very much.
Tony, I'll send you a couple of those files I was talking about
Okay.
with the BC Wildfire.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank
Goodbye,
you.
everybody. Bye, Vivian. Goodbye, Kristen. Goodbye, Graham.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for your techie support there. That's great. Doug, you still there? Goodbye, Doug. Doug's gone. Everybody's gone. Excellent.